Hey everybody, it's me, the Notorious B.I.V, and my lovely wife and co-host, Stephanie.
Hi.
Her name's Stephanie. I have a name too. Maybe I'll give you that someday. But for now, it's just, we grew up with internet anonymity. Like that was a thing. You know what I mean? And and I know like many of you probably have been on Facebook like your entire lives practically, right? At this point. Um, so so it's just different, I guess. It's different for me. I still kind of cling to that internet anonymity a little bit. It's just how I am. But anyway, this is our show. For now, I'm calling it Couples Chat. Do you like Couples Chat?
Sure, it works for me.
We're calling it Couples Chat for now. But so today's show, I do have a lot of shadow on my face, but it's just gonna have to be that way. So today's show, I've been kind of avoiding it all week. I didn't want to go this direction necessarily with the show, but our next 12 episodes are going to be focused on. We're setting up the next 12 episodes here with this show. So I struggled with a pornography addiction for many years. Many years. My first exposure was like when I was 9 or 10, and it was my drug of choice. I was like, yeah. My brain was like, that was awesome. Let's do it again, right? And first of all, I know a lot of you are probably saying right now, like, a lot of you are probably saying, well, that's dumb. You can't be addicted to pornography, blah 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 blah. Well, I do think there are probably people who look at pornography occasionally and put it down, and it's not that big a deal to them. So I get that. But
it has an impact.
Yeah. I think
whether you're addicted to something or you just occasionally encounter it, you still have an impact from it.
Yeah, you do. And I think, and in my case, and I can only speak for myself, but in my case, the images I looked at had an effect on my brain. My brain released dopamine and things like that made me feel good, made me feel stress-free, made me feel happy for a short time, right? And not only that, but if you masturbate while you're looking at pornography, and if you just look at pornography and don't masturbate, that's then cool. But I don't think many people do. And I did.
I don't know about cool, but
well, I didn't. And so if you have that is a physical response to the pornographic stimuli that you're taking in, and so you're getting in that physical response as well as the dopamine response in your brain, and that just reinforces that behavior. So in my case, I felt, and honestly, I do feel fortunate in many ways that I grew up in a time before the internet, believe it or not, and
grew up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you there yet?
Yeah.
Is anybody?
Yeah. Anyway, so I do feel fortunate in that, like, my exposure to pornography was like, magazines, physical, physical things.
Like print.
Yeah, print, videos, but things that basically like, it's not like the internet is now, where it's just like it's there, and you can just,
I think you had to go to a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Effort to get it, and then effort to cover up getting it.
Right.
Where the internet is much more available with a lot less effort and a lot less needing to cover things up because nobody knows.
Right. And so, I had to be like, I had to go to a magazine store, or I had to find magazines in my friend's garage, or I had to, you know what I mean? So it wasn't as easily accessible, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And because of that, I would go, days, weeks, sometimes even months between viewings, and so my addiction didn't progress as rapidly or as deeply as a lot of other people's stories that I'm hearing now. Like daily users of pornography, for example. That's a huge deal. And mine wasn't necessarily, my addiction wasn't necessarily debilitating. It was debilitating. Don't get me wrong. It has an effect, but it wasn't like the guy that views pornography every day on his lunch break, and then one day he just didn't come back to work because he was like off in a hotel room watching pay-per-view, for hours, and just like, you know what I mean? So I never got to that stage where it was like affecting my work and things. It obviously it affected our relationship in a lot of ways. And this isn't to justify my actions necessarily, or say like I wasn't as bad as this guy or that guy. It's just to say, I just want you to know where I was coming from with and what I consider to be an addiction. And for me, and some people might say like that's pretty mild, and maybe, but I also had a very religious background. I come from a very religious background. When you have two like opposing philosophies, like I did, right? I had religion that's saying, be good, don't look at that kind of stuff, and then I have the other side that's like, hey, I like this stuff, and it's exciting and interesting and whatever else. So when you have those two competing philosophies, like you have to kind of mesh those somehow. You have to reconcile.
You have to justify it.
You have to reconcile it. A lot of people, I think, just say, I think it's easy to say, well, my religion's wrong then, right? Like my religion's wrong, and I'm gonna go and do this thing. And is that better light? I don't know. Is the light better? Anyway, we turned the light on. So I had to reconcile these two things in my head. The way I did it was I said, well, my religion's right, and the things I'm doing are wrong. I did feel guilt from time to time, a lot of guilt and stuff. I don't think guilt's necessarily a bad thing, though. It doesn't have to be crippling. It's simply like guilt says, hey, you screwed up. It's you telling yourself you need to fix that, right? You need to do better. And that's kind of how I approached things. Is just, okay, I screwed up. I got to do better. And I did that for a long time. Of course, with an addiction, it doesn't necessarily work that way. You can't just will it away. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Now, I struggled with these things for many years, like I said, and then I met my wife.
Me.
And she was the first person that I ever really shared this with, that I talked about this with. I mean, I was,
well, other than religious leaders,
yeah, from time to time, yeah. I just kept this a secret from everybody. Kind of closed myself off from my family, from my friends. I didn't want anyone to find out.
Which I would argue is debilitating.
It is. It's incredibly debilitating, especially in my case. Like, that was a big part of why I kept being addicted, is because I was keeping it inside and not like letting anyone else know about it. Stephanie and I, we discussed this. We got married. She stuck around despite my failings. But
well, I'm not perfect either, but
she's pretty perfect.
No, he's pretty great.
Anyway, but so we got married, and and for the first while it was great. Like my my addiction, didn't rear its ugly head, because we were newly married, we were having sex, things were good.
And you were involved in other things. It wasn't just you, and so
yeah.
I think that pulled you away from that seclusion that you were having before.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I did give up a lot of my coping mechanisms, like TV and movies. Like, Stephanie doesn't do TV or movies, period. So,
not much, no.
And I was like, okay, I can do without those things, no biggie. And that's when I kind of found out that addiction many times is a response to stress. When you have stress in your life, your brain says, "Oh, I know how you can feel better, right? You can take drugs, or you can have a drink, or in my case, you can look at pornography and like chill, right?" And so we were married for a while, and of course, marriage is an adjustment. And then we started having children, and I was in and out of jobs. Like, I lost jobs and was looking for work and all sorts of stuff. I mean, these things start piling up, these stresses, and so my addiction came back. So that's where I was for several years, and a lot of addicts will have like a rock bottom moment, like a come to Jesus moment, or like things are just so out of control in their life, and they realize, oh my gosh, like, I've lost my wife and my job and my everything because of this, this thing that I'm addicted to. And so my moment, I guess, of that, my come to Jesus moment, so to speak, was a little bit different, I think, than other people, maybe, but maybe you can relate. But I had a lot of depression and things because of my addiction, and I came to a point where I said, this is, I don't want to be addicted anymore. And I almost lost my faith in my religion and my God, and at that point I just said, well, what if there is no God? What if there's no religion? What if it doesn't matter if I look at pornography or not? Right? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's not right or wrong, a right or wrong thing, right? And my thought at that point was, okay, well then, where are you going to go from here? And I said, well, okay, what's important to me? Well, I still love my wife. I don't want to like leave my wife and my children and go like drink and party and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm okay staying here and being married and taking care of our children. And I started thinking, like, what's important to me, right? And I realized that, like, the way I'd been living my life, for the most part, I was okay with still living that way. but I thought, okay, well, I still don't want to be compelled to do something against my will. I don't want pornography to I don't want some outside thing to dictate to me what my behavior is, right? And so at that point, I think for the first time in my life, I wanted to, I owned my behavior. I said, I wasn't doing it for my religion. I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I said, I don't want to be addicted, and that was kind of the first. I think that was my first big step, is that realization that I didn't want to be addicted, regardless of whether or not there's right and wrong and good and bad, and God and the devil and whatever else. So that was kind of my first step. And then my next step was finding this addiction recovery program, and that's what we're going to be going through for the next 12 weeks. It's a 12-step program, and and Stephanie and I were having a discussion one day, a serious discussion. Yeah, it wasn't an argument, but it was like close to an argument, and some of these things were coming up, about my past and things, and I said, look, I'm just gonna. I've been aware of this addiction recovery program for a while, and I said to Stephanie, I said, look, fine, I'm just gonna go to this thing. And my thought at the time was like, this will just get Stephanie off my back, and not that she was nagging or anything like that. She's been very loving and supportive, and I appreciate that.
Oh, I love you.
But at the time, we were having this discussion. I'm just like, look, I'm tired of these things, these issues that keep coming up. I'm just going to go to this addiction recovery program, and I was doing fairly well at this time. I wasn't like using pornography a whole lot, but I was like, I'm just going to go to this program, and we're going to like be done. I'm going to like go through the program and be done, and then like I'll be like, there, Stephanie, I'm done. Right? That was
kind of like, look, I got my diploma and I'm finished. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny in hindsight.
It is funny in hindsight. So what happened though is I went to my first meeting. I showed up at this place, and it's sponsored by our church. So I went to this recovery meeting, and like we were talking about before, being isolated, like Stephanie's the only person I ever really shared with, besides religious leaders here and there, and that was a big part of what was keeping me from progressing, from moving on from this. So when I went to this meeting, and there were all these people, I don't know, like 8 or 10 people, I guess, and I was.
But that's a lot more than one.
Yeah.
That's intimidating.
Yeah, and I was able to go to this meeting and say, hey, this is my problem. This is what I've struggled with, and just get it out there. Like, that was huge for me. That was huge, just to like get it out there, and from there, like, I've told other people now. Like, it's a little infectious in some ways, to talk about this. And so why am I telling you this now? Well, and it honestly, it's embarrassing to me. It's embarrassing to say these things. It's not as embarrassing as it once was to talk about this, but it is embarrassing. But in my case, it's really freeing as well. And I just want you guys to know that if you're struggling with something, it's there are ways out. And so these next 12 weeks, so this is kind of the direction we're going to go for the next 12 weeks. We're going to discuss each step of this program.
And if you're familiar with AA, you're welcome to follow along with the steps.
Yeah, it's
they correspond very well. They're almost exactly the same.
Yeah, it's adapted from the Alcoholics Anonymous program. So I will say, so I just want to say that I am recovered from my addiction. To an extent. The extent being, now I can choose to look at pornography or not look at pornography, rather than being compelled to repeat a cycle over and over again that I did for most of my life. And I choose not to look at pornography now.
And I think that's a huge part, is that you choose not to, and that's what maintains that freedom to choose the next time.
Right. Yeah.
Were you to choose to use it again, then you could easily suck back in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like an alcoholic who has recovered from his alcoholism doesn't go to a bar and right, and have a drink, have a drink with friends every now and then, or right? They just can't go there anymore. It's just it's just not. And I was gonna say, I took a Percocet once, okay, one time, and it didn't do anything for me. I don't even remember it doing a whole lot for the pain or anything. It was just nothing, right? Some people, though, that's their drug, and it's just oh my gosh, that's amazing, and they can't stop, right? That's how pornography was for me. But like I said, now I can choose, and I choose not to, and before I didn't have the power to choose. I was compelled to go back to that behavior over and over again. Whenever there was stress or things that I didn't want to deal with in life, that was my response. So, and now it's not. So that's good.
Yay.
Yeah.
But you may feel like that's not your problem, pornography, and so these videos have nothing to do with you. So I have to tell you, I go to the recovery program with him.
Yeah.
Not because I've ever had an issue with pornography, or alcohol, or drugs, or whatever, eating disorders. None of those things have been my issue. I've been addicted to chocolate. I have some control issues. As I've gone being supportive to him, I've realized that these same principles have been freeing to me, even when I didn't think that I had any problems. So hopefully you'll benefit, even if you don't consider yourself an addict.
Yeah. All right. So for the next 12 episodes, we're doing this, and the 12 steps. We're going through the 12 steps, and they're probably pretty familiar to you anyway. They're just they're pretty simple things that we can do in our everyday lives to make ourselves better. But and it's not just us that makes us better. It's a higher. You have to believe in a higher power. I think that's the first step. Whatever your higher power is, and that can, whatever that is to you. Anyway, that's the next 12 episodes, and we're starting a new channel. For those, I'm going to put this video on the new channel as well. So please go to the new channel. The link's going to be down here, and go to that channel and subscribe, so you'll get this content, and leave some likes, leave some comments. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about, because after those 12 episodes, we'll have other things to talk about too. So, anything else?
That does it for me.
Awesome. I love you.
I love you too.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you all in the next episode for step 1.